last, my love has come along. My lonely days are over, and life is like a song. Oh yeah, at last skies above are blue. My heart was wrapped up in clover. Night I looked at you. I found a dream that I could speak to. A dream that I can't call my own. I found a thrill to press my cheek to. Thrill that I never know. Oh yeah, you smile, you smile, you smile, you smile. Oh, and then the spell was cast, and here we are in heaven. For you are mine at last. One, two, 1, 2. The world is full of joy. You cry, you smile, then you dance. Even though sometimes it's a drag to toil without a gain, you smile, you cry, then you dance. Celebrating life is real, but not without a cry. Celebrating life is sweet, but not without a cry. Celebrating life is real, but not without a dance. Celebrating life with you, with everything it brings. you smile, then you dance. No, this south where I can see people all the world. They cry, they smile, then they dance. Celebrating life is real, but not without a cry. Celebrating life is good, but not without a smile. Celebrating life is sweet, but not without a dance. Celebrating life with everything it breathes. Fly away, my heart, don't despair. The world is full of joy. You cry, you smile, then you dance. Even though sometimes it's a drag to toil without a gain, you cry.
Oh, go for full hands. Yeah, very nice. Oh, yeah.
can make our way back to our tables, if we can slowly start making our way back to our seats. All right. If I can invite everybody to start making their way back to their seats, we'd like to continue with the next part of this evening's program. Gentlemen and ladies and everyone in the room, a kind reminder to make your way back to your seats and we can continue with the evening. Thank you, Mama. All right, final chance to grab last drinks and please find your seat again and we can continue. Right, it just seems like the energy in the room is such an indication that tonight is really going as fabulously as we all intention for it to. Thank you so much for making your way back to your seats. I'm just going to ask that we would have some silence in the room as we're about to observe our keynote speaker taking to the stage. So if you don't have your drinks, a final chance to do so, and then we'll be able to continue. Thank you so much to the wait staff that has brought out really delicious food and to the entertainment that has kept us having a good time throughout our dinner. If we're all ready, I'm happy to continue. Do I have your permission to go ahead? All right, perfect. Let's do so. So as we get to this next part of the evening, it's my absolute pleasure to take you through just some of the highlights that have been achieved by our keynote speaker. Utatu Kganyago was appointed the governor of the South African Reserve Bank from November 2014, reappointed again by the President of South Africa for the second 5-year term effective November 2019. He's also the chairperson of the Monetary Policy Committee and the Financial Stability Committee. Prior to his appointment as governor, Utatu Kganyago served as deputy governor of the South African Reserve Bank from May 2011 until his elevation to governor. Utatu Kganyago chairs the Committee of Central Bank Governors of South African Development Community, that's SADC. He also co-chairs the Financial Stability Board's Regional Consultative Group for Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as he chairs the Financial Stability Board Standing Committee on Standards Implementation. In addition to all this, until recently, he served as the chairperson for the International Monetary and Financial Committee, which is the primary advisory board, for the Board of Governors. Before joining the South African Reserve Bank, Utatu Kganyago was the Director General of the National Treasury. He's represented South Africa in international organizations such as the World Bank, the IMF, G20, and the African Development Bank. Now, in this role, he served as the chair of the Development Committee Deputies and also co-chaired the G20 Working Group on the reform of the IMF. He holds an MSc in Economics from SOAS University in London and a Bachelor of Commerce degree in Economics and Accounting from the University of South Africa. He's also received various training in finance, economics, and management. And having heard all this, I'm sure we're in agreement that he is well suited to be our keynote speaker. Please could you welcome onto the stage the governor.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good evening. And the presidents, according to their numbers of... but importantly, the first president, Jeff Van Rooyen, thank you very much for an opportunity to address you. The last time I spoke at an ABASA function was when I was still in the Treasury. I must have said something offensive that I wasn't invited again since then. I'm told that you are having a theme on leadership and excellence thereof, which is something that seems to be scarce nowadays. And so I decided that I will not talk about that and maybe retreat into my comfort and talk about the things that I think I might be knowing a little bit more than the auditors about, because the last time I tried to be an accountant, I was in the student chapter of ABASA, and I instead decided I would rather be making assumptions rather than dealing with debits and credit. So I chose to become an economist, and that is what I do. I make assumptions, and at the table here there was serious begging from a retired chairman of some big audit firm, who says to me that she is on pension and she lives on interest income. Can you please push those interest rates higher? I am sure that people who are the wrong side of 60, who are still having mortgages and vehicles to worry about, would not agree with that. I thought that tonight I would just make a quick reflection on where we are as an economy, and then talk about the importance that the audit profession brings into this. I'm not going to talk about your audit files and that, but rather talk about the importance of the profession to the broader economic management of a country. South Africa entered the COVID pandemic from a very weak base. We did this at the time when our public finances were seriously hampered by years of not so spectacular management of our economy. And what this meant was that the COVID situation made what was already a bad situation worse. And whereas in the global financial crisis, we were able to respond aggressively with stimulus measures because we had very strong fiscal matrix, this time round we couldn't. We didn't have the fiscal space. So the burden of adjustments actually fell on the central bank, and more specifically on monetary policy. With the COVID-19 shock, the South African Reserve Bank had to aggressively reduce interest rates to support households and firms. And in addition to that, we actually also provided regulatory relief to the financial sector so that they could continue to support their clients. The COVID-19 shock is still here with us, but the global economy is reopening. And as the global economy reopened, what was established was that significant supply chains had been disrupted, and the responses of governments in providing stimulus during the COVID-19 were such that the global supply chains could not respond adequately to the resurgence in demand. Result was, inflation was beginning to rise. And as inflation was rising, central bankers were torn between two camps, which were consistently debating whether inflation is transitory, meaning is it temporary, or whether it is going to be a permanent feature. Lots of central banks in the advanced economies convinced themselves that the inflation situation was temporary. It was not to be. By the time that they decided to respond, one argued they might have been a touch too late. South Africa and many other emerging markets, predominantly in Latin America, started adjusting the policy rates and started to tighten monetary policy last year. Although South Africa's response, starting in November last year, could not be seen so much as a slamming of the brakes on the economy, but rather as taking the foot off the accelerator of the vehicle. By the time we got into the April meetings of the IMF and the World Bank this year, one of the things that came was that Team Transitory has lost, and that inflation is very much with us. Were we? The most recent figure coming out of the United States, which was a September figure, showed printed 8.2% headline inflation and 6.6% core inflation. Core being inflation as we know it, but you take out fuel and food prices. We checked the statistics. For a period of 50 years, South African inflation had been lower than that of the US in only 3 months. And these are not 3 consecutive months, 3 different months in a period of 50 years. In the past 15 months, consecutively, South African inflation had been below that of the US. It has also now been below that of Europe, the Euro area, and spare a thought for the UK, whose inflation is now in double-digit figures. Now, for those of you in the room who still remember 1998, that in 1998, when we experienced a shock as a result of the Asian crisis that took place in 1997, and the Russian default in July of 1998, South African inflation rose. And the response of the South African Reserve Bank was to increase interest rates, and interest rates went as high as 25.5%. What is different this time? What is different this time is that you have got a central bank with a focus. In 1998, the central bank pursued what was called an eclectic monetary policy, looking at everything. And by 2000, when we decided to adopt the inflation targeting framework, we were able to bring inflation down. Higher inflation begets higher interest rates. If you want lower interest rates, you must have lower inflation. In 2001, we experienced a shock as a result of a default of Argentina. Monetary policy responded. Interest rates went up, but not as high as 25%. They actually went to around 16%. In the global financial crisis in 2008, interest rates went up. The repo rate went all the way to 12%, but nothing compared to the previous episode in 1998 that you saw. In the aftermath of the COVID, monetary policy is adjusting, and interest rates had been going up without calling it. The peak will not be anything like we had seen in 1998 or like we have seen in 2008, or 2001. Reason being, we now have a monetary policy framework with a very clear anchor and a central bank that is capable of deploying its tools to manage inflation lower. I suppose in the light of the theme of this year for ABASA, I would say that that is leadership. South Africa had been able to weather this crisis, and our financial system had been resilient to withstand this crisis. As regulators, we rely very much so on the quality assurance that is provided by the audit profession. As monetary policy makers, we rely on returns that we get from companies' financial statements to assess the state of our economy. We are able to do that with the knowledge that we can rely on some assurance from elsewhere. And that brings the auditing profession right into the heart of economic management. The South African financial reporting ecosystem was once enjoyed the status of being ranked amongst the best in the world. However, in recent times, we have seen a myriad of failures, both in the private and public sector, where accountants and auditors, most notably auditors, were in the public eye for all the wrong reasons, casting significant doubt on the integrity and competence of the profession and the trust placed in the profession by key stakeholders. Auditors are a key component in providing credibility to a set of financial statements which gives stakeholders confidence in their accuracy and their fairness. Quality audits can help to improve an organization's controls and systems, establish compliance with laws and regulations, minimize the possibility of fraud, and take measures to protect its assets and establish sound governance processes. As auditors, I'm sure you understand that you play a crucial role in the economy by establishing order in the financial markets, as stakeholders can form views about audited results based on trust. In case of doubt, just check what happens if a company says, we cannot release our financials because we are waiting for our audit report. Meaning, we are disagreeing with the auditors, and the auditors have found certain things that we didn't think that they will find. And because they found those things, we are trying to negotiate our way out of it. And this becomes problematic because it is during this period that we talk about these auditors that, these auditors that. Because we didn't like the audit opinion that they expressed on our financials. But it is important that the auditors act with objectivity, independently, and with a reasonable level of suspicion when dealing with management. Corporate failures at a number of South African institutions, as well as multiple irregularities involving external auditors at various state-owned entities that were brought to the surface during the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, have left many asking where the auditors were and how they discharged of their responsibilities when such failures and irregularities took place. The question of how audited financial statements were issued without the auditors picking up on these issues or drawing attention to these irregularities as part of their reporting is a pertinent one. This has resulted in scrutiny of the audit profession by stakeholders and the general public, which has called into question the effectiveness of external audits. Such irregularities have placed the audit profession under the spotlight, with many calling for swift action to be taken against auditors that acted unethically or without the required due care and skill. This has eroded confidence in the profession and deemed the profession risky, with registered auditors either leaving the country or the profession. The number of registered auditors decreased from 4,079 in 2019 to 3,634 in 2022. This has also resulted in various stakeholders and regulators taking bold steps to restore confidence in the profession, prevent similar events from recurring in the future, or holding auditors accountable for their role in failed audits. So when one of the big firms in South Africa experienced significant problems, as it happens in a free market economy, the competitors started circling around their clients. And at the time, I remember that speaking to a number of the audit firms saying, don't dance around the grave of this firm. Because I want to tell you, I have watched this movie before. It is going to emerge in another firm, and another firm, and another firm. And it was not long that we had Steinhoff, we had Sonkat Hewlett, and I can go on, and I said that there we go. Don't dance around the grave of your competitor. Understand that as a profession, there is a problem, and that we have got to sort issues in the audit profession. And of course, this raised the things that you chaps always talk about, the issue of audit quality, which remains a key issue for the profession, with a number, whether we're talking about the number of files inspected by ABASA, which have resulted in significant improvements required, or referrals for investigations. According to ABASA's 2021 inspection report, engagement, performance, and ethical requirements were the leading causes of deficiencies in audit quality. This was driven by poor systems of engagement, quality control, as well as inadequate controls to identify and respond appropriately to threats to independence. Audit quality remains a concern not only for the local regulators, but also for the regulators at a global level. The Financial Stability Board hosts a roundtable on external audit annually, with the focus of these roundtables being on audit quality. At the most recent roundtable, participants agreed that there is a need for continuous sustained improvement in achieving consistency in the execution of high-quality audits, and that auditors exercise heightened levels of professional skepticism. I wish to commend the work done by both local and global audit regulators and standard setters in driving improvements in audit quality. The Internal Audit and Assurance Standards Board issued the suite of quality management standards which come into effect in December this year. For us in South Africa, we were amongst the first countries to adopt these standards, even encouraging early adoption. This, to my mind, is necessary to restore the perception of South African accounting and audit profession to where it was. It is only as recently as 2004 that South Africa was rated #1 for the quality of its accounting and audit standards. Where are we today? Number 20-something, somewhere? And that is not where we belong as South Africans. We have got to restart and go back to where we actually belong, which is at the top of the global profession. Restoring confidence is thus going to require changes to the entire financial reporting ecosystem, and not just at the audit level. A significant number of corporate failures arise from fraud and other dishonest practices. Auditors are often quick to note in their defense that it is not the auditor's duty to detect fraud. Whilst this is true, auditors should also note that they are required as part of their responsibility. As part of their responsibilities to ensure that the risk of material misstatement of financial statements due to fraud is reduced to an acceptable level. This issue of fraud becomes important. It becomes important for us as the regulators, for banks do fail, and when banks fail, the easiest thing to do is to scream at the central bank and say, what were you doing? Were you not watching? And when you scream at us, we scream at the auditors and say, where were you? Why were you not watching? And so the importance of audit quality comes to the fore. But whenever a bank had failed and had to be resolved, two important things. One is that you must be assured that there is capital in that bank, and if there is capital and it's just a liquidity problem, that is what we do as central bank. We provide liquidity. So we will come back and we will do that. However, if there was fraud in a bank, forget it, you will not be able to resolve it. And so that brings the role of the auditors in the detection and the minimization of fraud to the center of what we are doing with respect to governance. Auditors are often the last line of defense in the system. A sound financial reporting system should ensure that every link in the chain is strong enough, thereby not relying on the audit process at the end to identify any irregularities and breakdowns in controls. Those charged with governance within both the public and private sectors must set the tone by creating a culture of ethics and honesty with zero tolerance for unethical behavior. A world-renowned financial reporting ecosystem contributes to an increase in investor confidence, which in turn makes the country attractive for investment. This contributes positively to economic activity, to growth, to employment creation. Failure to address these challenges in the system, therefore, has the potential to reverse these gains, ultimately resulting in financial instability, reduced revenue collection, and increased levels of unemployment. Let me bring this with a few reflections, and then I can sit and enjoy wine. Several questions then remain for the sector to reflect on, and I do not have the answers. I am throwing these questions so that you as a profession can reflect on them. Has enough been done to hold those responsible to account? When there is failure in the profession, do we hold those responsible to account? What should be done about those sectors that are unregulated and provide little to no incentive for those charged with governance to act with integrity? Is it justified for auditors to bear ultimate or sole accountability for corporate failures? What happens if we don't address these shortcomings? Can we afford not to do so as a country? Coming out of the judicial inquiry into state capture, we know that there is a serious lack of capacity within our law enforcement authorities to prosecute financial crime. we need to ask the question, to what extent could the audit profession assist the law enforcement authorities to build their capacity to prosecute financial crime? I am throwing these questions to you with the knowledge that I am sure you will be able to explore this, and without a doubt, you will be able to find some answers. If you check this carefully, and I close. After the failure of Arthur Andersen, Trevor Manuel asked that we must relook at the governance of the profession and the regulation thereof. And then, as it happens in the Treasury, it was said this thing must be given to the Office of the Accountant General. And Manuel said, accounting is too important to be left with accountants alone. And what we ended up with was a bunch of economists in the Treasury who were to drive the reform of the profession, which then meant that we needed to bring everybody back in. And that was done, was a reflection that as a profession, we didn't pick up these things. You didn't pick up these things. And as we have to answer these questions that I have posed, I am saying to you, if you do not do it yourself, somebody else will do it to the detriment of the profession. One of the prominent challenges in the audit landscape is the concentration of audits of large institutions in the so-called Big Four firms. This concentration magnifies independence concerns associated with long association by auditors and their clients. Although the mandatory audit firm rotation rule is intended to address these risks, transformation of the industry and increased competition is key to ensuring that the profession remains relevant, independent, and accountable. And in any case, mandatory firm rotation with so few firms, it is just going to be a merry-go-round. It will just move from one to the other. And as I then conclude, I want to go back to what ABASA was supposed to do, which is this influential organization whose mission at the time was to increase the number of black accountants in the country. I know that there might be other interesting things to do these days. My view is, it is as important to increase the number of black accountants and auditors today as it was at the time of the formation of ABASA. It is ABASA's historic mission, and it is a mission that ABASA cannot abandon. You have got to live up to that mission today for the forebears, the founding fathers of ABASA, when they had that vision. That vision, I am saying to you today, it is as relevant today as it was then. And I hope that Jeff Van Rooyen, you will drum up into their heads that it is still very important to increase the number of black accountants in this country. Thank you very much, and congratulations to the awardees.
Thank you very much for that address, Mr. Governor. And it seems like from some of the laughter in the room, you're both recognizing and agreeing with some of what he has shared with us here this evening. And I would have thought initially they would say you can't get away from Big Brother, but it also seems you can't get away from the auditors. And so maybe one of the big encouragements to take out of this is what can be done individually and jointly to maintain the integrity of this profession that seemingly is very important to South Africa. We move into this next part then, where we're going to step into two parts of the awards ceremony. We've got the recognition awards as well as the President's Awards shortly after. If you would be kind enough to join me as we welcome onto stage now Ukaya Sitole to lead us through the recognition awards part.
Sure. So much pressure, Governor. Good evening, everyone. So for those of you who were surprised that there was a bit of clapping, earlier on today we had a very, very strange turn of events in that I was doing a panel discussion, and before the panel discussion, somebody played a video. And that was a video of the SAICA CEO. And because there are too many chartered accountants in this room, ABASA, we need to talk about that. They started clapping when the SAICA CEO finished talking on a video. So when I went on stage, they just didn't clap. And I was like, no, wait, hold on. You must acknowledge that when one star leaves and a superstar gets on the stage, you need to clap, as it were. So that is the basis for that particular clapping session. That's the first part. The second part is that in my panel discussion earlier on, I may have told you guys that one of the panelists has accused me of being a stalker because I keep asking her for the past 10 years, I call her and then I say, I've got a student that needs to be funded, you're going to make the money available. And for some odd reason, I don't know what's wrong with her, she always keeps saying yes, and that's stunting. So she's my stalker. But as it turns out, well, I'm stalking her, I was stalking her. As it turns out, tonight here, there's another person who stalks me. Because 7 days ago, for an entire weekend, I was locked up in the middle of nowhere with this gentleman, and here I am in Cape Town trying to run away from him, and here he is again, and that's the governor of the Reserve Bank. So, stalker tendencies, I can't get away from the governor, and I keep trying. So whenever we meet up, the very first thing that I say, I'm like, Wendota, these interest rates are a problem, do something. And then he talks to me about monetary policy and everything else, and then I'm like, Ama rates and his answer is no. So I've tried, guys. We'll keep trying. So those of you that have the courage, the governor's here. No, we are bulal. Those rates, they're not working out. It's cartel. But anyway, so this is actually the second most exciting part of an ABASA convention. The most exciting part is usually, obviously, the president's dinner, because that's the only time you can hang out with people who only ever learned 3 accounting standards and then they became CS and you're like, guys, you can say that to them. So that's the first part that I enjoy. But this particular segment is always of great interest to me because I think the one thing that is always quite critical about an organization that was founded on the principles that the founding president, Van Rooyen, is Coke, had in mind back then was the fact not only did we actually have to create a profession that dealt with the prevailing issues of the day, but we also continuously had to remind members and prospective members about the role and the relevance of us taking our space in this particular profession. The issues that Mr. Jeff Van Rooyen had in mind back in 1985 when he decided, I wasn't even born then, when he decided that he wanted to fix my issues so that by the time I was born, I didn't have to deal with the issues that he dealt with, unfortunately remain as acute today as they were back then. We've made some great strides in addressing some of them, but the reality here is that we still make up a minority of the profession. A lot of work has been done, particularly since the turn of the century, in order to try and address it, but the challenge lives on. So when we then talk about recognizing people who've actually responded to the Van Rooyen call, as I call it, which is the call to make a difference, the call to champion the cause of someone else beyond yourself. These recognition awards are essentially an extension of Mr. Van Rooyen's legacy. That is really why these the awards are of critical importance. So this year, for some strange reason, the ABASA executive team decided that, okay, cool, we need people to adjudicate on these awards, and because you look like you're not very busy, so they saw me on Instagram and they thought I wasn't too busy. They're like, well, you're going to chair our adjudication panel. So we had an independent adjudication panel. I was part of it, and we had 5 members of this adjudication panel. And we received a lot of nominations and a lot of motivations for the individuals that other members of ABASA thought this is the person who's doing something to live up to the Van Rooyen legacy in one way or another. Could you recognize this person? So we sat down, we deliberated, and because of the world we live in, it was on Teams and on Zoom, so we didn't sit down and have a beer. So we were very sober when we made these decisions. That's important. Well, I don't know about Dante. So this is essentially a result of a process that is quite inclusive in nature, in that a call is made to say to ABASA members, you are the ones that are at the coalface of the profession on a day-to-day basis. So as the executive team of ABASA, we may know a person or two, but you guys are engaging with these individuals on a daily basis, so therefore your insights and your inputs are the ones that are going to drive this particular process. So that's how we do these ABASA awards. And of course, the categories that we have essentially are responsive to the times that we live in. So there are essentially categories that you look at and then you say, wait, hold on. For a very long time, people thought that accountants were in it for the money. I'm not, mainly because I'm poor. Yeah, that's the answer. So there are people who do some extraordinary work in different spheres, and they just happen to be accountants at the same time. So sometimes you look at them and you're like, but aren't you a debit and credit guy? But then they do very important things. The first award in particular is the one that I think is a critical acknowledgement of the fact that accountants, in spite of the fact that we think they do debits and credits, they're remarkably dynamic people. Not only can they be remarkably dynamic people, but they can be people who are committed to making a difference. The first award that we're talking about is the one that talks about the NPO Executive of the Year. And when we talk about the NPO Executive of the Year, the very first thing is that, wait, we studied accounting so we could be rich. So therefore, when you go non-profit, you're doing the opposite of what you taught you, didn't you? But of course, that is essentially a question of answering the purpose of an individual. So a person who goes and works in the NGO sector and the NPO sector is a person who then says, I want to apply my skills in order to make a difference to a wider community. And our award recipient today is someone who's done some truly extraordinary work in simply lending a hand and extending that impact and that touch informed by ABASA to then say, I want to make a difference in other people's lives. The Bono Foundation was started with the singular purpose of trying to make a difference in one person's life. What it does this year is that on an annual basis, it reaches over 10,000 learners and provides them with skills guidance and gives them, insights into what the whole higher education sector is all about. It also provides calculators to individuals that need them. So it is one institution where a person who's a specialist in debits and credits has said, no, my purpose in life transcends the debits and credits. So the winner of the NPO Executive of the Year for 2022, this is the part where you do the whole drum roll thing, I can't teach you everything, is Chipiwa Munzenele. Chipiwa. So Chipiwa is on the way, so this is the part where the clapping carries on. Certificates at that side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So those of you that want to support the Bono Foundation, you know who to talk to afterwards. It is doing some truly extraordinary work. The second award that we're going to hand out tonight is an award that I'm worried about. And my only worry is that when the recipient goes home, she's probably going to struggle to find the space to put this award because she's received so many other awards in her life. So that's my only concern. So of course, if it turns out that there's no space there, I don't know. If interest rates were lower, Governor, maybe she could buy another house, hey? She could get more space to be able to, get this together. But it is a human being who actually has a very, very unique space in the profession. And what makes a space unique is that there are people that we all look up to. And I think the sad reality is that for most of us, the people that we think are the superstars of the profession are people who are working in all the big listed audit companies and all the audit firms. So everybody who's doing the things that, when you see the annual report, you're like, yo, go see I'm. So when somebody goes into the public sector, it is a big thing. When somebody goes into the public sector at a time when being in the public sector was essentially the definition of risk in South Africa, it is a remarkable step. So when she was the CFO of Eguruleni, I used to look at her and I was like, yabolo, she did some remarkable work there, she got some clean audits, and as it turned out, the political headwinds of the day then changed, as we know, and then she moved on to an organization, and at the point in time, I now know this, that when she started at this new organization, because she started during COVID. So she got there, and then she's like, I'm here to work, I'm the CEO, and everyone's like, the CEO of what? Can you imagine what happened to the Avis business when suddenly people's mobility was not a thing? And the Avis business is all about mobility. So she gets there, she's like, I'm the CEO, and people are like, if you say so. But over the past couple of years, Ramasela Ganda has obviously continued to distinguish herself as a type of CEO that you go to if you want to fix the public service, and if you want to fix the private sector, and if you want to tell people that things can be done, all you have to do is be committed to the cause, then our private sector CEO of the year, Ramasela Ganda, is the person you go to. Thank you very much. So our next award recipient is a dear friend of mine. Well, actually, that may not necessarily be true, but the one thing that I've learned about networking is that name dropping works, guys. So I go to particular events and then I just say, oh, Ramasela, I was having lunch with her last week. At no point in time is someone going to pick up the phone and say, Ramasela, do you really have lunch? They're like, oh, Ramasela, so let's make the deal happen. So name dropping is the way to go. But this one individual in particular is the one whose name I'm always very happy to drop. So this is an individual who, yet again, when he looked at the landscape and he looked at the history of where the country is and the state of our public finances, then said, look, I'm happy to go out and put up my hand and say, I'm going to fix this. When you decide to be a CFO in the public sector in South Africa these days, you take on some particular risks, you take on some career interruption that a lot of people are saying that, you know what, no one ever said that we hired you because of the things that you learned in Kandla municipality, for example. So it's not seen as a career progression. However, if you are able to get in there, and in light of the fact that of the 257 municipalities that we have, the idea of a clean audit is like, it's remarkable. Anyone who can pull off 7 such clean audits in a row is, for me, the definition of a superstar. Sandiso Gwabe is the winner of the Public Sector CFO of the Year this year. Thank you. So, I need to tell you a short story about what I do when I'm not on TV. I'm always on TV. So, when the governor talks about the Steinhoff movie, I'm looking around, I'm like, do they know that I'm actually in the movie? I am. So, when I'm not doing movies and things like that, that celebrities do, I read a lot of the reports that get tabled in Parliament. And a couple of weeks ago, one report was tabled in Parliament, and that was a report of the Auditor General. And one of the slides that emerged from the report about the Auditor General is the great advances and the great progress that has been made in essentially making that the office of choice for a lot of graduates that want to study the CA profession. Over the past year, the Office of the Auditor General has managed to move from the bottom of the list to essentially the fourth biggest training provider of CAs that passed the final professional exams, and I think, in fact, they had the second highest number behind PwC. So the ability, the ability of the Office of the Auditor General to produce as many candidates that sit and pass the APC exams is one of the key strategic pillars that the current Auditor General and the Deputy Auditor General have committed themselves to doing, because for many people, the Auditor General is where you went to if all the Big Four had said that you're not good enough. So that's a very important change in the fact that now, if you want to be a CA and you want to pass the APC, the AG is as good a place as any to go there. But underpinning that story is a very, very strange tale of 18 Sunday mornings. Every Sunday morning for 18 weeks in a row at 7 a.m., students at the Auditor General had to log onto their laptops. When they logged onto their laptops, there's one face that they'd see first, and this person would say, the reason I'm up at 7 a.m. is so that you can pass the APC, so that you can become the chartered accountants that the Auditor General needs. Happened for 18 weeks in a row. And the person who ran that process without fail was there every time at 7 a.m. Whether there was load shedding or not, he was there, he would make it happen. And by the time all of that work was done, the Office of the Auditor General had its highest number of candidates who actually passed the APC exams. So of course, when ABASA said, guys, tell us who you think the manager of the year is, there was an overwhelming consensus across the country that the one individual who is an audit manager who's done remarkable work in getting the CA profession to move an inch further in the past year, in getting the public sector to move an inch further this year, is Dira Motata. Thank you very much, and welcome, Dira. I thought you were not going to be around. So the other interesting thing about Dira's suit is that yesterday we learned that there's a new color. So we were at an event yesterday. Somebody was wearing a suit that looked like that, and we all thought it was purple, but apparently it isn't. What's the color? Apparently it's puce. That's not purple. Apparently it's puce. We discovered this last night. So we're like, oh, okay, we're learning new things. That was the lesson of yesterday, right? Our next award is the one that I obviously hold very dear to myself, and that is the award that we impose on someone who has imposed their ideas, their academic ideals on students throughout the year. The Academic of the Year award is a remarkably important acknowledgement of the simple reality that for many of us, well, for all of us, to end up in this room today, to either be members of a profession, to either be members of an institute, somebody had to look at us when we were 16 or 17-year-old first years and say, "Ngathi khona potential," and teach you what the difference is between a debit and a credit, and tell you what it is that a balance sheet is. The one thing that I can confess, though, is that not a single university lecturer has ever managed to get their students to actually balance a balance sheet. The last time you balance sheet is in high school. If you ever made it in varsity, no. It was not right. So balance sheet do not balance in university. See, no one ever got it. No one ever got it done. So when we talk about the Academic of the Year award, no, guys. Those of you that say you balance your balance sheet, the computer balanced it. You did not. It doesn't happen after matric. No one balances a balance sheet. as it turns out, those of you that are responding to me saying that you can't balance a balance sheet have probably forgotten that since 2015, it's not even called a balance sheet. It's now a statement of financial position. So even the ISB worked out that since no one was balancing these things, let's stop calling them balance sheets. So it doesn't happen that way. So when we put out a call to say to students across the system, tell us who is the one academic that has made a fundamental difference in your lives, it was not surprising to us that it was an academic that a lot of students said, look, I came from a particular background, I came into a very hostile environment, a very foreign environment, and I thought I had mastered debits and credits, but as it turned out, I had no idea what was going on. But this is the one individual who managed not only to guide me through this particular journey, but it is an individual who made me believe that whatever pitfalls, whatever speed humps there are in this particular journey, I was still good enough to get over the line. The winner of the Academic of the Year award is Zurelda Mongane. UWC. Congratulations, Relda. So, the next award talks about something that many accountants look at and then they're like, I don't need it because there's too much risk involved. Going into business is not easy, guys. Eh? You suddenly are responsible for people's salaries. You're suddenly responsible for people saying, "Hey, boo, my child woke up and decided not to go to school because they're sick, so I can't come to work, and there's a client waiting for you to deliver." It's not easy being in entrepreneurship. It's not easy at all. So obviously, I'm way too shy to go into any business. So being an entrepreneur is not an easy journey. Being a successful entrepreneur in the country where the support system for entrepreneurship quite simply do not exist, and the success rates for entrepreneurs quite simply are not there, is an extraordinary achievement. It's even more extraordinary when you spend your entire post-school career being taught, Kuti, stay away from risk, shonala. Because that's what all accountants are. So everyone says, stay away from risk. That's risk. Find it, identify it, and then run away from it. So the idea of then saying, no, I'm actually going to go and gamble and try to do something that enables me to become an employer, that enables me to become a mentor, that enables me to actually advance the country's economic landscape is a truly extraordinary decision to make. When you then do it as successfully as our Entrepreneur of the Year has done, it is clearly something that ABASA cannot miss. So when we put out the call to say, tell us who the Entrepreneur of the Year is, we saw so many motivations to say, that's the thing, guys, that award, if it goes to anyone else except for this one, it's been betting. The winner of the Entrepreneur of the Year for this year is Emma Mashilwane. Just in case you have a home loan with Capitec, just in case you have a problem with the governor and his interest rates, please be aware that she sits on the board of Capitec. So if you want to negotiate your home loan, this is the one night in which you're going to do it. I'm almost done. Congratulations, Emma. I'm switching over to Capitec very soon, so I'm expecting some favors. Our next award, our next recognition award, is the one that essentially takes us back to the very idea of how ABASA is committed to developing a pipeline. So people do not become ABASA members the day they decide, oh, I'm now an accountant, I'm now a professional accountant, or a CPA, or a CIMA, or a SACA member. No. The ABASA journey starts for many people when we are in high schools. So when we do schools visits, which for most people, grade 10 is when they start taking us seriously. So sometimes you get there and the grade nuns are like, so grade nuns are not the ones that we tend to talk to. So when you do schools visits and then you see these young people then saying, oh, I've heard about this thing. I've heard about this particular profession. And they get to university and then they say, yes, the reason I'm here is because ABASA came and preached this gospel to me many years ago, so therefore this is what I'm doing. It is a remarkably important part of the pipeline development of black accountants in the long run, because you cannot gamble on the fact that you're going to find them at university. So within the particular pipeline, the Trainee of the Year award is the one that acknowledges an individual who is able to then say, wait, hold on, I've managed to conquer the university environment, but because ABASA alerted me many years ago to the ongoing challenges that you find not only at university, but within the training environment and also post-qualification, I'm going to continue on the mission of trying to ensure that the journey becomes a bit easier for anyone that comes after me. So the Trainee of the Year award is the one that acknowledges an individual who's not in a position of authority, but simply says that whatever little influence I can make in the space, this is my duty. This is how I execute on the Van Rooyen legacy. The winner of this year's Trainee of the Year award is Marumo Masimola. Congratulations, Marumo. So, those of us that once made the call to go and work in the academic space, I came out, by the way, in academia. It's all about passion. It's all about passion. Go Zurelda. There's no money there, guys. So I don't know if the governor can intervene, but we need more money in academia. What happens within the academic environment is that ABASA has what we refer to as student chapters. And what these student chapters essentially seek to do is to try and really drive the idea of a service to your community and a service to your profession from a very young age. So what student chapters do is that they get together and then they say, okay, we actually want to ensure that those few of us that have been fortunate enough to make it to this university environment are not actually left hanging, are not left out to dry out. So student chapters play a very critical role in becoming an ongoing support system for students within university environments. They also enjoy a very strong relationship with the ABASA back office, mainly because they keep saying, "Study event, study mal." So when those events are done, and then they say, we'd like a speaker of a particular reputation, it enables many more people to keep believing that they will eventually get them. So student chapters are a central epicenter of the ABASA model. So of course, within those student chapters, there will come every year an observation that there is one individual, there is one student whose commitment to the cause is so truly extraordinary, people notice it beyond their own campus. So when you talk about the Student Leader of the Year award, it is an individual who has not only been able to say, I'm making a difference in my campus, but the difference that that individual has made has become the envy of other student leaders and student chapters also, because they're like, yo guys, we wish we could be like them. The winner of this year's Student Leader of the Year award is Posiso Mkachwa. I honestly can't remember. I think it's the motto. Yeah. Okay, so apparently students and flights are not a common thing. So, Ose Pasini on the way here. So, when Spusiso eventually gets here, then the award will indeed be conferred. So, that concludes my particular segment of this particular recognition award ceremony. So, of course, you have to clap. And remember, guys, the main reason you have to clap is that right now there's a video recording happening. So when ABASA does its post-event assessment, and then they look at a person who stood up there and everyone went silent, then they don't pay that person. So the reason you're clapping is that I can be able to say, do you see? Do you see? I kept them awake. So give me some cash. So please clap again. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll now hand over to the president of ABASA to move on to the presidential awards for 2022. Thank you very much.
I hope it's written here. I remember them. Good evening again. I always enjoy the awards, and I think we've talked about, and Jesse, who is our representative from the USA, we have a relationship with NABA, which is National Association for Black Accountants, flew all the way to join us. And we were on a panel earlier, and he said, yeah, you can clap for him, flying all the way here. It's expensive. But he was asked a question around how do we ensure that we remain relevant, especially to young people, and the things we recognize are important. So these particular awards, in principle, for me, are important as a leader of this organization, where we recognize our people and our family as an ABASA, stakeholders included. So these awards go to the following categories. Can I actually get my phone? And my daughter's here so she can bring it for me. Thank you. That's why I brought her here. I want to start with the branch of the year. So in driving alignment, and you would have seen I traveled around the country following the APE dinners. That was also to revive our branches and ensure that we are aligned. So it gives me great pleasure tonight to announce the branch that I believe has heeded the call to alignment, especially around discipline and respect and the values of the organization, and aligning itself to the vision that we have put out for our members. And this year, that award goes to KZN. I promise there was no pressure from the king from today. The next award goes to the most active member of the year. ABASA has created committees that support the national strategy. And I decided that when making this selection, I would look at the people who are sitting in committees and not necessarily leading those committees, but so committed to what that committee must do. These are the unsung heroes, the ones that make themselves available, the ones that preach the gospel even in their workplaces when we are not there. And today, I'd really like to recognize someone who's serving in the public sector committee, and she also works at the Auditor General. And it is important that I recognize this because the work of the Auditor General is so important to ABASA, and her alignment and dedication to understanding why we are partnering is so important to us. So Matsidiso, this award goes to you. surprised because she didn't know. And I knew I didn't have to tell her because she's so committed. I knew she'd be here. So this is great. Then we then have the organizations that hear me nag and talk about my strategy and talk about this and talk about that and say, actually, Linda, let's talking, let's move. So I want to now recognize our partners and the people that really have our back as ABASA and committed to transformation and put their money where their mouths are. And you know, in the journey of running an organization like this, you need as much support as you can. So these awards are important. So the MOU Partner of the Year goes to an accounting body that has shown up for this organization in the past 12 months. They are quite new to us, but have shown up in a way that has shown us that we can work together so much better and have each other's backs, and also very committed to the women cause particularly. So tonight we award this to ACCA. Then we go to the Corporate Member of the Year. So there are those of you that happily take out the amount every year to support us. Number 16, young Nol. So there are those corporate members that take out their membership fee every year. But then there are those that go beyond that. They come to us and they say, what are you doing for the year? And even after supporting that and committing to that, every time there's a need and you say something in passing, they're like, how do we help? So this year, we'd like to recognize a corporate member that has gone beyond just the financial support, but really support in capacitating the office, making sure that I don't have to run around as much as I used to run around, which is really great, but really making time to understand what we need as an organization around transformation. Listening when we talk about what changes need to be made. And this organization has really received a lot of heat from a lot of you. And I have taken the responsibility as president to increase that heat for you and to say that there is a responsibility on them and they've listened to that. And this year I would like to award that to SAPRO. So the certificate is empty, like it's not written because they actually helped us print and do everything, so I couldn't put it on. I just want to double check because I'm almost at the big award for the night. But I don't want to do the same thing we did last year, President Ashley, where we announced the big award and then we've forgotten someone. So it turns out there are actually two big awards left. So I think my previous president will really agree with this award because he tried to give it last year and I said, no, it's not the right time. It's only because I wanted to give it, President, so thank you very much. This individual, ladies and gentlemen, has been through a lot, but also has done so much for this profession, even though he's been through a lot. He jokes around, he tweets crazy things, but he's got such a heart of a gem. When we celebrate the pass rate at the AG, if I could please have a bit of silence because this is an important award. This individual has spent so much of his time without expecting any recognition. And I think it's important that the people that have the biggest smiles are also recognized because behind the scenes, there's so much going on. So as I thought about who I'd give this award, which I've named Transformational Impact Award, this individual was a no-brainer. He has given so much to students, and he's journeyed with it, and he continues to do it. He's helped the Auditor General achieve the results that they got this year, and he continues to be a brother to so many in this profession. So many have come through his hands. He is so young, and I think he deserves this recognition. So tonight, I want to recognize Ukayas Toll.
It was completely unexpected. Yeah, I'm in shock about that. But I suppose I'm fortunate enough to be able to say that in this room, there are, from what I've counted, about 12 students who I first met when they were in matric, and then they said that we want to become chartered accountants. And I remember all their stories and the journey of how they got here. Some of them work in the public sector. They're doing remarkable things. One is about to take over as the CEO of a very large corporation. So it is essentially the validation of what ABASA taught me when I was much younger, to say that all you have to do is extend a hand to one person and that will replicate itself. So thank you very much.
So I'm going to need a little support for this one. So I'm going to ask my numbered presidents to please join me on stage for the announcement of the Lifetime Achievement Award. So President number 1, if you can lead all of us to the stage. Number 2, I see you there, if you can join. Number 6. Number 12, number 13, number 16. If you can please get onto the stage for me. Number 14, thank you. Also, I just wanted you to see the numbers. So, every year, every year we think about the people that have made an impact, not only within an ABASA space, but beyond. And this year, I think I had lunch with this particular individual and recognized that as we think about the work she's doing for transformation, yes, I gave it away, it's a she. The work she does with young people, her passion for dealing with GBV in the country, something very close to her heart. But from the ABASA history books, really the deliberate action and passion for education. She is so giving. I've watched so many young people posting her, and she's so available. And then she says today, "Hi, Madam Pres, I always say I'm available and then I'm not around." But today, she literally flew in to make sure she was here. Earlier this year, we launched the Forum magazine, a magazine that really encompasses what these individuals and the legacy of ABASA is all about in celebrating our people and celebrating the thought leadership and the excellence that this organization aims to drive. And that particular magazine was actually the brainchild of this particular individual. But in everything that she does, it feels like she is an evergreen lawn for us to rest on. And tonight, Mamfuti, I'd like to recognize you. President, my 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 president. Can you sing, Galok? My Tio, my president. Come. Apotio, my president. So she already wants to take the picture. But Mamfuti, on behalf of ABASA, we love you, we see you. And I think the one thing we spoke about, and Mam Tanti, you were there, is that we don't remember ABASA ever recognizing a woman for a Lifetime Achievement Award. So as the first woman president of ABASA, it's also an honor to you being the first woman to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm kind of lost for words because I didn't expect this, but I wasn't going to leave here without really thanking ABASA for just being that place and space that allows us to contribute to the country in one way that is very specific, driving education in the space where we need it all in order to allow people that look like us to play a meaningful role in the economy. And what it also does is you have your tribe. Always, you have your tribe. They protect you, they make sure you do the right thing, because every time when anything leads you to temptation, you think if the first page is seen by number 1 or 17, or a student that always looks up to us and say, when I grow up, I want to be like her. And then she sees you in this paper. So that makes us honest. It keeps us honest. It keeps us wanting to do the right thing. So more than anything else, really, why we do this work and why I do this work. I think like all of you in the room, the mothers as well, I am a mother of a son and a daughter. What I want for my son is that he has all the opportunities that he wants. I want the same for my daughter too. What I want for my son is to reach his dreams, and that's exactly what I want for my daughter too. And I see this world that it can't always continue to benefit my son, sometimes potentially at the expense of my daughter. So in a nutshell, I think we want to build a world where we all have the same opportunities, whether you are a woman, a man, a boy, or a child, and where our grandchildren will live in a world where they will not be talking about the things we are talking about today, of opportunities that are not equal. So it is living a dream which we believe it will be realized. And of late, the issues that I drive are really around the economic empowerment of women, because we should all understand and agree that this world has remained, our country even, has remained not so favorable for women. Talking about just the economic empowerment, general abuse, severe abuse. A woman is killed every single hour. As we're sitting in this room, quite a few women, girls, and children, even babies for that matter. So I think we do want to see a different world, and it is only us. It is in our hands to make that difference. So thank you so much for the space to do this. And then you do this and you still thank me for doing what we have to do. I appreciate it.
Please keep the applause going for Mama Mtava. She makes her way to her seat. What a wonderful evening it really has been. I'm going to invite, for the final speech for this evening, the founding president of ABASA, Utata Uche Fanoyan, to just do the final vote of thanks. You know.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I just say, in the interest of time, all protocols observed. I wasn't expecting to do this, Madam President. But I guess, now that I can say that I'm an author, I've got to be able to think on my feet, right? Yeah. It's truly, truly amazing. I was saying to my fellow presidents, that, when we started on this journey some 37 years ago when I was either the second, black chartered accountant in the country or the fourth, depending on the racial classification. You know, when we started, just looking over the past 37 years, you know, and I look at this room, I look at all of the young chartered accountants. I mean, and I said to them earlier on that, you know, when I became a chartered accountant, we were timers, right? You know, we were timers. You guys know what a timer is? But now when I look at this room, I see all these young chartered accountants. You know, I think we have done extraordinarily well. So thank you so much. I think many of you were not, you know, at the session today, and I think what I tried to say there is that one of the reasons why we can speak of ABASA as a tribe, and I think one of the reasons why this organization has been so successful is because every 2 to 3 years, you know, we hand over the baton, you know. Let me take the opportunity to sell at least one book. Yeah. You know, if I may. So if you read the book, you'll see that I've actually done quite a number of comrades marathons, right, which is a 90-kilometer race for those of you who don't know. And where's Andile? What did you say about running 90 kilometers? He said something about you've got to be running away from something, right? Okay, but I think it's a very good metaphor for what I would like to say. And that is that, you know, when we started out 37 years ago, in some ways we recognized that we were going to run a marathon, that we were not going to accomplish the objective, you know, in a short space of time. And so when you run a marathon, well, I mean, you don't have to run all of the 90 Ks yourself, you know, basically. So what we've done, every 2 to 3 years, we hand over the baton. But before you hand over the baton, your leg of the race, you run that leg of the race as hard as you possibly can. Then you hand over the baton. The next president who takes over runs that leg of the race as hard as he or she can. And I think, so we've done that 17 times. You know, I started the race, and then, you know, if you want a full list of all of the presidents, can I sell a second book? It is in my book, but I've also been smart enough to put it in the annexure, so you have to read the entire book, you know, get to this list. And our youngest and current president, I think you've just made it, number 17. So we've been handing over this baton, and I think, you know, all of the presidents, I want to also take the opportunity, Bra Israel, you know, you were the second, you know, for the contribution that you've made. And I think this is why this organization has been so just incredibly strong and so amazing. And I think, Governor, you know, I can't believe that when I was during my tenure that you were in the student chapter. You know, I mean, really, okay. But I think, as you've said, you know, when we started this race, that was the objective, that we needed to grow the number of chartered accountants, black chartered accountants. And we didn't do it, it wasn't a numbers game. It wasn't about having numbers for the sake of numbers. I think we had an understanding of the very critical role that accountants play in the economy. And then if you just look at the numbers in terms of population, we recognize that in the future, those chartered accountants will have to come from our community. It's just simple. It's not even mathematics, it's simple arithmetic. And I think, as you've said in your address, I think that vision or mission that we had at the time is still very relevant today. I think we all know that we've got some significant challenges, and you've outlined those challenges, you know, in the economy. And the economy will require, you know, more chartered accountants going into the future. So I would like to repeat what you said, and that is, whatever that vision, mission was 37 years ago, it is still very relevant today. I understand that I was not supposed to make a speech, but, you know, being an author, you know, I really couldn't pass up the opportunity. I was supposed to propose a vote of thanks, I understand. So let me now take the opportunity to thank all of you, for having graced us with your presence, not only tonight, but over the past 3 days. Dario, you and your team, I really would like to thank you for all of the support that you have provided in the past and continue to provide. I really think it's a well-deserved award. And all of our partners who are here this evening, all of the other accounting bodies, let me also say that when we started this organization, we recognized that we couldn't have an association just for chartered accountants because there were so few of us. So almost by default, we said that it will have to be an organization for all accountants, whether you're a CIMA, so many designations. And so it happened almost by default. But I think it was serendipitous. It's a big word I'm using. I'm an author, right? I love the word. I think I'm going to repeat it. I think it was serendipitous, that we were able to be inclusive, as an organization. So I really would like to, to thank, all our fellow accountants from the other accounting bodies. Thank you so much for your support. And it's certainly my hope and my desire that going into the future, that ABASA will continue to be an inclusive organization. I can't let go of the platform without also making a statement that I think I've been making every day this week. And that is to say that, at my birth, I was classified, by the South African government as a colored, right? And I write in the book that classification has haunted me, for all of my life, right? And in some ways, I was only able to rid myself of that label in 1994, right? And one of the big lessons that I've learned, over the years, and let me sell a third book. I do write about it, in the book as well, okay? So that's the third book that I'm selling. But one of the big lessons that I've learned is that we must never, ever judge a person on the basis of the color of the skin. And I think also to add to what you were saying, Futi, we must never, ever judge a person on the basis of gender. And of course, biblically, we know that we're not supposed to judge not so, because the Bible says, when you judge not, because you will be judged. But hey, we frail human beings, we judge, right? That's what we do. And so I say to people that if you want to judge people on the basis of their values, their principles, and their strength of character. And I think it is for that reason that I say unapologetically that I'm totally, totally committed to this non-racial democracy that we are trying to build. And I think on that, what I would like to believe is a very high note. I hope I've done justice, Madam President, to the vote of thanks. Thank you very much for all of your support.
Just a little while longer with that applause as Utata makes his way to his seat. Awesome. Thank you, and that's it for what has been a fantastic convention. It's been my absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to come and visit, because when you sort of host these events, you get to see what people are passionate about, and there's no doubt that there is an overriding feeling of passion in this room and commitment to the work that you do. And I think possibly the best way to describe it is almost an attitude to serve. Everyone who was recognized and given an award, even though it may not have been you on this stage today, it's still noticed and valued every contribution that you make into the space. I quite love that your daughter is here as well, Madam President, just so she can observe that her mom kicks butt and takes names. Yes. So thank you so much, everybody, for honoring the invitation to be here. It really has been fabulous to spend the time with you. Thank you to every single person who has contributed in making tonight, and in fact, the past number of days, a success. To each one of the sponsors, to all of you for your participation. Thank you so very much. Please will you make sure you get a gift on your way out. Enjoy the hospitality and have a good time. If you're traveling tomorrow, do so safely. And hopefully I'll see you next year. Maybe Kaya Stole will be my partner next year. I love his charisma. Good night, everybody, and have a fantastic evening.